Very well. So in progress, fine. So you see my first slide, shaping the future in great transformation 21. I think that we are going through a great transformation in the 21st century. And by the way, there were many, namely four, it depends a little bit on how one counts, since Jesus Christ up to today, we had another four such great transformations. It is not easy to depict them and to define them from the books, etc., but this is what I have in mind. Now, shaping the future in Great Transformation 21, this means our century, the fundamental change from the old world to a new world, and my name you know, all of you. So, the fundamental nature of change. This is what I call this picture, an easy picture, but an important one in using it, basically in free space. And then you see a red S-curve. S-curves are important. Then the green S-curves and the vertical line. And this now gets interesting now, I hope so at least, because how does the transformation take place? We cannot see into the future because this is into the fog, but we can learn from previous transformations and draw conclusions for the current transformation. And you see, the red one is the foundation of the present existence, the green one, the future existence, and in between, the critical decision zone with shifts of resources. So I go further. Oh, just a moment, please. Yes, now something of a line comes into the picture, and then you see the left side of the picture, and you do with, and I had a question mark on the right side where the lines are in not really seeing. So we can even go further, and then people think the red curve is in full bloom, and we should go to the red curve, and the green curve is not really important. We do not want that. Yes, this is one point of view. I'm sorry. So this vertical line now goes into the middle of the S-curves, but still with a very big question mark. It's only getting interesting now, I think. You see up here a little bit of text, because how does the transformation take place? We cannot see into the future because it's in the fog, but we can learn from previous transformations and draw conclusions for the current transformation. So, let us now make up the curtain, and you see foundations of present existence, the foundations in terms of the S-curve, foundations of the future existence, and in the middle, the critical decision zone, the shift of resources. It's now, in my opinion, getting interesting now, because how does the transformation take place? And we cannot see into the future as humans because it's in the fog, but we can learn, as I already said, from previous transformations and draw conclusions for today. Sorry. Excuse me. Now, management is, in my opinion, the societal function that enables organizations to function. Trivial, you might see, or you might think, but for my clients, this is quite interesting for them. Then management is the transformation of resources into value. This is my own definition. One can see it totally different, but management is the function, we could say, the function of transforming resources into value. I'm sorry. So, management is the transformation of resources into values for customers and society. Resources like money, people, knowledge, and then here, value for customers and society. Yes, and management influences this picture. We need management to come from resources to value. The following applies to the organizational form of the commercial enterprise. Profit is the test for the business mission's correctness and for the efficiency of its implementation. I know there might be very many definitions to management, but I thought that this could be a very useful one to define it this way. Then management is the profession, an additional definition of functioning rightly. It is management which brings social organizations to function, or it fails to do so. There is not overall our 1 hour knowledge, or because there are then some graphs also. And therefore, management is one of the key functions of modern society. Managers are the very people who practice management, as seen in this way, as a profession at the various levels of the organization. Consequently, almost everything everything that is most precious to us as members of modern societies and that makes life in them also worth living, from economic prosperity to a high level of education and creativity, and finally to the quality of life, depends on the competence and quality of management. Thus, management is the societal, this is my definition, societal function that enables everything else to function. Societal function that enables everything else to function. It is also the function which transforms economic and social resources into results and value for society. In order to achieve this, management has to be carried out in the right way, and it has to be done well. It has to be right and good management. Much of what is termed management up and down the country fails to a large degree to meet both the requirements, results and value for society, or complies very badly with them. The prevalent understanding of management is a minefield, that's my opinion, of errors and false doctrines. That was why today's crisis, threatening our affluence, were able to arise. They were and are largely due to wrong and bad management. Now I go further. Definitions of management. Management is the driving force whenever it comes to jointly accomplishing something by way of collaboration and through division of labor among people, many people, be it in national defense, the church, the field of education, healthcare, and of course, mostly seen in the business world. So these are my professors at that time. They have died away at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland, where I am. So, definitions of management, second possibility. And you see this person, this is Peter F. Drucker. We have been friends. He has died away with 100 years. He actually lived, he is an Austrian, and he lived up to 100 years. And he said, this is his picture here. He was in California. The first thing is that management, that is the organ of leadership, direction, and decision in our social institutions, and especially in business enterprise, is a generic function which faces the same basic tasks in every country and essentially in every society. One can have other meanings, but this is Peter Drucker. Management has to give direction to the institution it manages. It has to think through the institution's mission, has to set its objectives, and has to organize resources for the results the institution has to contribute. This means, above all, still Peter Drucker, that managers practice management. They do not practice economics. They do not practice quantification. They do not practice behavioral science. These are tools for the manager, but he no more practices economics than a physician practices blood testing. He no more practices behavioral science than a biologist practices the microscope. He no more practices quantification than a lawyer practices precedence. He practices management. Questions? If not, I go further. So, my understanding, management is the moving force whenever many people have to achieve common goals by division of work and knowledge. It is the organ of leadership in all our social institutions, in the business enterprise as well as in the university, in the hospital, in the city, and all other organizations. It has to give direction to the institution it manages. It has to think, I'm here, through the institution's mission, has to set its objectives, and has to organize resources for the results the institution has to contribute. Management is the transformation of the resources of a society into results and value for customers, receivers of performance, and all of society. So management is the societal function that enables everything else to function. The next one, what management is and what it is not. Management and business, as I said in the last sequence, management and business administration are not identical. Management is not limited to commercial enterprises. In our countries, this is why I have put it this way. People think totally different. Namely, they think management is business administration, management, etc., etc. So, to number 3, management is the most important societal function. Management is much more than management of people. It is not only top management. It is not identical with MBA programs, as you in the Anglo-Saxon world have it, but we have others, but they are very similar, basically. Management, number 7, is not identical with US management. And management, as I understand it, and management is something different than doing business. Management tasks have to be distinguished from operational tasks. Next one. Examples of smaller and larger transformations. They all follow the same pattern. Car replaces horses. iPhone displaces Nokia, telephone. Digital image processing replaces chemical photography. You know the problem of Kodak 20 years ago or more even. Industrial society replaces agricultural society. Butterfly replaces caterpillars. Gothic replaces Romanesque. Computer replaces mechanical office machines, and much more besides. How does that happen? Next one. The Great Transformation 21. From the old world, we know, and now you will see the S-curves. The old one, the foundations of the present existence now. And then the other one is the green curve, which overlays for the future existence. And of course, there is quite a critical decision zone, shifts of resources. And then there is the vertical line which signals today. The left room is for the past, the right one for the future, and this is where we are today. Now, these are a part of our most important basic management models for the public. So one can make mathematical or logical models and many other things, but we have done it now since about 10 to 15 years when we tried and quite successfully so with this kind of graphical models with colors. So again, the two S curves, and we know there is a question mark, and we can maybe even more to the left, then things are just born in a way. But then it makes it up and we see the full picture. It's only getting interesting now because how does the transformation take place? We cannot see into the future because it's in the fog. But we can learn from previous transformations, historical ones, and draw conclusions for the current transformation. So, next one. To be able now to act correctly today, it helps to know the patterns of change. And you see, I have already now said more or less everything. Strategy 1 for the red curve, as long as it gives something. Strategy 2, build the green curve in time to have it when we need it. Strategy 3, for the transformation from the red curve to the green curve. Now, some examples of how transformations are underestimated. Now, how Sir, somebody said, namely Napoleon Bonaparte, when he told of Robert Fulton's steamboat at 1800. How, sir, would you make a ship sail against the wind and currents by lighting a bonfire under her deck? I pray you, still Napoleon, excuse me, I have not the time to listen to such nonsense. Now that this was not nonsense, but the first times to come to this kind of ship. Next one, railway. Examples how transformations are underestimated. Rail travel at high speed is not possible because passengers, unable to breathe, would die of asphyxia. A certain Dr. Dionysius Lardner, 1830. Might be at that time, but this is our time, and we all know how the next steps are working. Next one. Examples again how transformations are underestimated. So Sir William Preece, not a dumb person, he is the chief engineer, he was it, in the British Post Office, 1878. And he said, the Americans have need of the telephone, but we do not. We have plenty of messenger boys. Okay, you might laugh or not, or weep, or however you react to these things. Then, examples how transformations are underestimated again. The horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty, a fad. Who said that? The president, not a thumb person, of the Michigan Savings Bank advising Henry Ford's lawyer not to invest in the Ford Motor Company, 1903. And then a little bit nearer to at least to my time, examples how transformations are underestimated. There is no reason for any individual to have a computer in his home. Who said that? It was Ken Olsen, a Swedish person, president, chairman, and founder of Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC, in a talk given at 1977 World Future Society meeting in Boston. Am I too, can you understand me? Can you see it? Okay, fine, thank you. The next one, what are the main driving forces behind today's great transformation? There are four, and then there is a fifth new power, which together lead to a new reality. That's my position. The old world as we know it is being, displaced by a new world that is largely still unknown. Driver one, digitalization. The main effect, total global networking. We have had digitization since the 1970s, but at today's level of development, it achieves much more, namely the networking of everything with everything else, globally, networkings. Driver two, population structure. Aging in developed countries, overburdened social systems, lack of digital education, migration from underdeveloped countries to developed countries. Driver three, ecology. The increasingly clear and growing environmental issues to be taken seriously, even if you don't believe probably everything you read in the media. Driver four, the economy. Another major factor is global debt, which has so far been absorbed by central banks and zero interest rates, depending on the countries. Radical price collapse through digital solutions, current and threatening trade wars against each other instead of with each other. The interaction of all these things forces results in a completely new factor. And I go to the next page. New factor. Driver five, explosive and exponentially increasing complexity. Complexity arises from networking. We experience this worldwide in more and more areas. Often the first impulse is to reduce complexity. You might remember the speeches of Stafford. Often the first impulse is to reduce complexity. Sometimes this is necessary and also right, but most of the time you confuse complexity with complicatedness. This must be reduced. Complexity, on the other hand, should and can be used. Then complexity is diversity. It is the most important new raw material, namely the source of intelligence, creativity and innovation, as well as information and communication. Those who have and can offer more diversity potentially have more customers, more promotional, possible reactions, and often a better understanding of what is happening out there. Those who have more diversity can communicate better, understand, and reach more people. More is in my books, but I will not go into those. I go further. Next one. Now look, New York, Fifth Avenue, Eastern, 1900. There is only one car on this picture. All others are horse carriages. Very elegant one, wonderful things, and people like them, but just one car. Go further. Now, Eastern 1930, only 13 years later, no horse to be seen on the road, just automobiles. Next one, revolutionary nature of fundamental change and innovation. So you know all this type of telephone, landline, to the smartphone. The next one, from ship to airplane, all along the S-curves, from analog to knowledge management, and from conventional projects to disintegration. Stafford gave me the rights, and therefore there is my name on it for disintegration because it is his invention. Organizations keep using outdated tools from the last century to meet challenges that are entirely unprecedented in their complexity. So, the revolutionary nature of fundamental change and innovation. 1956, this wonderful hard disk IBM 305 RAMAC, you might remember it. Weight 1 ton, 5 megabytes, costs $43,000, leasing per month, and $8,600,000 GB leasing per month. So 209, data traveler, USB drive, we have it all. Approximately 374 movies. Songs costs 800, and then 214. And of course, we are now 10 years older and wiser, and etc. Cloud computing, data and computational resources on demand via a computer network. For instance, the IBM Cloudburst store up to 115 terabytes costs $200,000, etc. So, next one, examples of transformations. You see here 100%, percentage of saturation. Years, this is the time axis, 1800, and here we have 2050. And the growth in length of each infrastructure is presented as a percentage of the maximum value. For the airways, the maximum value, it will show up, but wait a little bit, was estimated. The 50% levels of these growth processes are separated by 50 to 56 years at regular intervals. The new maglev technology, for instance, reached its 50% level around 2058. So here we have the channels. You see 1800 and up here the 100% of channels and therefore ships. The next ones, railways, all American data, starting before 1850 and ends here at 1920 something. And then we have roads and automobiles from 1900 on up to 70 or so. And then we have airplane from 1930, passenger airplane up to more than 2000. And the next one might be the maglev or something else in terms of even better technology. And if we smooth a little bit these curves, then you see that all are in a exact 55 years distance from each other when we measure it from 1800 here, percentage of saturation. Then the substitution of horses by cars in personal transportation. The substitution of horses by cars in personal transportation. Percentage of all vehicles. So the horses go back from 1900 to 1930, and the car the other way from 1900 up to 1930. Sorry. Yes. And if we smoothen it out, the data points you see connected by straight lines represent percentages. The S-curves are not fits to the data points. They are simply drawn to illustrate now the idealized substitution path. The sum of respective ascending and descending percentages equals 100 at any given time. Now, the path partly run through turbulences, so look out for the patterns of change, foundations of present existence, whatever we look at, to future existence, critical decision zone, shift of resources. This is the middle point today, and we can now look a little bit different. Management, governance, and leadership are being confronted today with special challenges, which are historically unique. Knowledge, organization, transformation, which add up to the complexity society, which I like to name it. Society of organizations, transformation society, a society that is constantly changing in poorly predictable ways. And third, knowledge society, a society in which knowledge is the most important resource, and overall, the complexity society. Next one, again, this one, maturity, saturation, new growth. Growth can go on, but on a different path. And you see, this is the ideal line, optimal path of development. And with the management tools and models which we have been designing for the last, let me say, 15 years or so, of this kind of models which can easily be learned and worked with it, and most managers like it, as our experience. And growth can now go on, but on a different path. This is also another normal situation. We do not go to the foundation of the press for the S firm, but we boost it up by advertising and all other things. And of course, it rings a little bell, and this is fine at Christmas, for instance. And then we have just a big blow. And what happens then? This one, the collapse, because they didn't look at the S curve. So this is now the green curve, foundations of future existence, and our models which we can handle these curves quite easily if we have learned it and if we have practiced it. Typical problems of non-cybernetic control through intervention, labored development. So this is the red one. Critical decision zone here, revolutionary new management. So this is the ideal curve, optimal path of development, and during the transition phases, a new foundation of future existence needs to be defined. How can a new world be achieved? Next one. Let us make a big jump. The organization today, this picture, and here, the ideal organization tomorrow, customer satisfaction, reliable functioning, sustainable profitability, and then we have the feedback, required measures for implementations up to the first step. And then you see already status 1, the next look at the lines, and then status 2, and then we have the ideal should achieve or come to the ideal organization tomorrow, at least by thinking of it. Might not yet be practice, but already some sort of science. And then we have some models, a sensitivity model, the viable system model, and the Malik management system audit, and right strategy. And this is the super-integration, which we have called it and use it. And therefore, you see the icosahedron from Stafford, and we have customer satisfaction here, reliable functioning. This is the idea which we are after, sustainable profit. And then we required measures and methodologies for implementation. We start here. You see all the slides here. And then status. The next one, again, with the same tool, icosahedron. Again, a third one, and then we have the total picture of the ideal situation. Of course, one needs quite some thinking about it, depending on, let me say, the automobile, the car industry, or whatever we have in the developed countries, computers, of course, and quite some other things and methodologies. So, and here, old world and new world, new and different, rather than more of the same. Growth continues, but in a different direction. More of the same. Aha. Yes, but then nature does not do that, because the organic change is the butterfly, and therefore we can quite easily teach people in the economy. And this is now come to the end. You see it, there is no need to talk about it. Status 1, and this is just a totally different animal than this one. We all know that, even from childhood. Required measures for implementation, status 2, and then we end up at this totally different animal, the butterfly. So, a puzzle at the end, the result of interconnection. If you know that an object consists of approximately all these materials, 15 kilograms of carbon, 4 kilograms of nitrogen, 1 kilogram of limestone, half kilogram phosphor and sulfur, approximately 200 grams of salt, 150 grams of potash and chlorine, and some 15 other substances, and 4 to 5 buckets of water. What do you know then? We have all these materials, but what do you think about it? What comes out? Okay, let's move on. This is a human being, okay? These are the materials of the human being, and so I am at the end. Do you have questions?
Thank you very much, Fredmund. For those of you that didn't come in the beginning, Fredmund has another commitment, so he's gonna be with us only for another 20 minutes. So we have only 20 minutes for questions. So who would like to start with the questions? I think that you can stop the presentation Fredmund, so that we can all see each other.
Yeah. So, are there questions?
Okay.
I have, so I
Yes.
can start.
Please,
Thank
Arce.
you. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Happy to see your slides and talk and hear your voice. Heard about you for quite a lot.
Okay, thank you.
I have a bit maybe slightly provocative question. So from my bubble, this would say, management as a profession seems to be in decline in popularity. So there's a self-managed teams are efficient. There's automatic tools taking care of business administration. Individual contribution roles, people prefer to do things rather than to manage anything. And then new generations also kind of do not consider that as a lucrative and rewarding position. Do you think it is a transformation, regression by some reason, or just a temporary glitch?
I'm not sure if I understand what you have said. It's not that easy to listen to you, just because of my computer or maybe yours. I don't know. But what do you personally think yourself?
Um, that's a nice boomerang. So management as a profession, I think it might be a transformation that people somehow it happens automatically thanks to the tools and others and distributed more evenly. So that as a profession, it not considered as anymore important. So we just have a networks and things just happen without much of the management and just put the feedback loops and then things just happen. So that's my.
Oh, okay. If you then you are very very uh, looking into the future. I mean, I would like to hear more from you how you do it. But then it's self-organization, it's self-management, and things like that. Of course. Do I understand you, or do you think differently?
I'm just wondering, do you think it is a mistake and there should be professional managers whose job is to manage, or it's a function that could be implemented and or realized by anyone without much of the education and basically time spent. It can be done as a side thing.
So, you think that everybody or most people in an organization should be capable of self-organization and self-management. Is that what you want to you want to tell me?
I,
I would
I
I
don't.
would agree.
I'm
Huh?
mostly questioning like, is there a need for professional managers from your perspective?
Yeah, in my opinion, it depends a little bit from the kind of business. So, for instance, automobiles are quite different than airplanes, and where we need biology and things like that. So that depends on the very branch of the company.
Okay, all right. So it's context specific.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arseni. We have a question from John Lee.
Thank you for your talk. It was very interesting. I want to give one example that's I think you're familiar with, and that is the British National Health Service. When it got established, the physicians were given the opportunity to have a national contract. Because of that, they had to establish trusts and a variety of other organizations, none of which are compatible. So at this point in England, it's a national system, but there's no organization within it that's consistent.
Oh, I see.
If the physicians had a contract with the local jurisdiction, then the healthcare system of England could be lined up compatibly with the counties and the cities, which it is now like this. So there is no leadership coordination between the health system and the social care system that the local government is responsible for. I believe that if the doctors in England had a contract with their local jurisdiction rather than nationally, they could organize the National Health Service and eliminate half of the bureaucracy that the National Health Service has now. That's an example of what I think you're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm not that familiar with the British healthcare system, etc. But it's quite some interesting field, as you told it. Thank you. So, Mr. Aziz.
Yeah, good evening, Professor Fredmund. Arsene, hello. I think we know each other on LinkedIn. I might just make a few remarks and then ask a more specific question. I really enjoyed the presentation and the references to both Stafford Beer and Peter Drucker.
I'm sorry, Mr. Krasikov. You have been first before Aziz. Do you want to step in?
No, it wasn't just I forgot to mute myself.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then please go on.
So Peter Drucker said the purpose of a business is to create a customer. And in the real world or the world of work, I think we often forget that. To Arsene's point, I think management is really about managing people rather than your definition of managing resources to create value. We really struggle to define what we mean by value. And I'm a contractor. I work in airports. I've done John Lee. I've done a lot of work in the UK National Health Service. So we don't have a good operational definition of what we mean by value.
Okay.
And I guess this starts to feed into my question of what is management these days. We've divided ourselves into in the world of work of there are some people who govern, there are some people who manage people, and then there are some people who do things. And whilst Drucker said, profit is good when it's understood correctly as a feedback indicator of success. But I don't think we understand profit in the right way. And instead, we've kind of moved to this world of hierarchy is bad. Let's throw it out of the window. And these self-organizing in teams. But what we find is when teams are given discretion or autonomy, they just don't know what to do. So I guess my question is, and I'm going to quickly go to your S-curve thing. Most of the times we don't know where we are on the S-curve. And I'll give you a very specific example for those who work with data. In the old days, we used to have these, transactional databases with data that was very normalized, and we used to take data out of the systems to do reporting and analytics. And technology meant both data were organized in very different ways. And we're still stuck in that old-fashioned world of modeling data for technology and not modeling data for meaning and understanding. So I guess my question more specifically is really, maybe adding to Arsene's point, what then do you think the point of management is then? Because I don't know I don't know where this message comes from. So the consultants will go in and explain things to them, but I think it's just lost in the real world as I see it. I think that message of what management is and should be normatively is very lost.
No, I agree if I understand you correctly from the language and so on. But in so far as I understood you, I agree with you, and we have to learn that. And I think in our times with our technologies, computers, etc., there are of course very many good opportunities. But we have to learn, I think, and to train and to learn and teach younger people these kinds of models and also the issues which we have to manage, or then leadership against management. Is it the same? Is it totally different, or at least to a large degree different? So, in my opinion, management and leadership is not the same, but of course, one can discuss it.
So just to maybe add, if you don't mind, so thank you for that, for your response. But the question is, who trains these managers? Like a doctor has to be trained; they go through a qualification. Every profession has, any serious profession has a system of knowledge. Whereas it seems to me anyone can be a manager. And managers run organizations, the most complex, dominant systems we have in the world right now. We live in the world of organizations, like you've said.
Absolutely.
Yet there is who, when I rock up reading my little books, trying my best to influence, it's like, well, that's a bit academic. Or the consultant will come along. Is it governments that should be responsible for training managers? Is it what institutions exist to train better managers and to make them professionally accountable, perhaps even morally and legally responsible? And I'll stop there. It's probably more of a remark. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to call in Markus Schwanninger. Hello, dear friend. Fine, you're here.
Hello,
so
friend.
Please.
Well, we have been working together for many years, and I've learned a lot. But thank you for the brilliant lecture. My question is, does the concept of stakeholder play a role in your management framework?
Yes, it does. Stakeholders are there, and we need them, and we can hopefully use them in a positive way.
So, well, I suggested it a long time ago already. I said we have to include the future generations in the spectrum or in the set of stakeholders. And a professor told me I was crazy.
Did he?
Yeah, he said this is ridiculous, like that.
But obviously, as far as we have worked together, I mean, you had always not these ridiculous ways. You have done it very well.
Yes, actually, we included the ecological issues in our strategy discussions back in the 80s.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's a
so
long
it
time
is.
ago.
Yeah, Marcus, so it is, yes. Long time ago, yeah. Okay, so Angela, please.
Yeah, I have a question. When you talk about profit, like the test for the business mission's correctness, and you talk about the developing sustainable profitability, don't you think that this may take us to a way of transformation that may not be the kind of transformation that society is needing in this moment? Because the idea of sustainable development is, when I discussed this with Stafford himself, Stafford Beer said to me, sustainable development is an oxymoron. There is nothing that can be sustainably developed because resources are constrained and because it is precisely this neoliberal capitalistic approach to development that has taken us in the route of non-sustainability that we are in this moment. So how can you put together this idea of management for increasing profits and being sustainable, profitable, with ideas about more long-term sustainability of society and the economy?
I mean, I have learned very much from Stafford, as you know very well, Angela, and I read all his books more than one time. I think I have never stopped reading his books. That he has passed away is a very, very, it's hardly understanding that just this person who at least told me, and his books, via his books, etc. Yes, but this is not just in German the Betriebswirtschaftslehre. We have from Stafford a different way of modeling of what is management as a function, etc., etc. Who did? Oh, there are very many persons now. Hello. I've seen now very many. Marcus, what do you think about Stafford's theories and books?
Well, I'm delighted. I mean, for me, knowing that material was really fundamental, you know, because it's almost the first time that they have a generic theory of organization. I mean, we have other guys like the more practice-oriented Peter Drucker and so on, but here we have a theory, and theory founded models. And so, so often you have a choice of a spectrum of models you could use, and like in the multi-person or large group systems. Large group systems, we have 2 books in our library with large group approach, open space and strategy virtual, what they call. And there's one which is integration. I've examined all of them. And I come to the conclusion integration is the best of all. Why? Because it's the best theoretically founded. And I think there's the strength. And so the viable system model, for example, about which we have been talking, I mean, that's a generic model which is stronger than all the organizational models in the world. Why? Because it's the only one that expresses this daring proposition that it specifies not only the necessary but the sufficient preconditions of viability. And that's a strength.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen,
we have
Marcus
one question from Elena, the last question from Elena.
Okay.
Elena.
Elena, hello.
It's very good to see you. I just wanted to ask if you had any guidance for managers on how to appropriately handle the 3-4 homeostat, because it seems that that both business people and political people are not doing that very well or very consistently right now.
I mean, in terms of, let me say, just the ordinary, as I put it like that, the ordinary way of management, or do you think of Stafford's way of thinking and modeling, etc.? So, you know, I have learned so much from Stafford, and I can never forget him. Never, never, never. It was so wonderful, and I have learned so much from him. A totally different kind of thinking, and also of acting.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fredmund, for a really nice, interesting webinar. And as I know that you need to go now, I think that is this the end? Yeah. Yes,
it is so. Yes, yes. But look, this is, for instance, one thing from Stafford, and it's totally different from any other model that I, at least in my life, and in particular in school, have learned about. But this one, and if one really works with it and tries everything to understand it, this is really a big step forward. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there are very many now, but we can probably, Elena, if you are so, or Angela, another date probably. And so thank you very, very much. And Marcus, of course, your input very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.